might be an appropriate title, at once the honest and the twisted, hedonists and visionaries, founding fathers and prodigal sons. And perhaps the most memorable characters of all are the animals that made the fur trade possible, especially the beaver, the sea otter, and the buffalo. Thousands of books and articles have been written on the American fur trade. In 1902, in his classic 1,029-page The American Fur Trade of the Far West, Hiram Martin Chittenden warned his readers, "In fixing upon a logical order of presenting the subject, much embarrassment has been experienced on account of the heterogeneous character of the material to be dealt with. The events have been so diverse, and have borne so little relation to each other, that the task of making a connected narrative has been well-nigh impossible." Whereas Chittenden focused almost exclusively on the Western fur trade in the 19th century, the scope of this book is much broader. Nevertheless, I found there to be a clear and compelling narrative. I also discovered that the narrative had a logical ending. For the conservation movement that emerged in the late 1800s and early 1900s coincided with the widespread implementation of laws regulating the killing of fur-bearing animals. This book, therefore, does not address the American fur trade as it evolved during the 20th and 21st centuries, nor does it cover the current highly charged political and ethical debate over animal rights and the propriety, or many would say, the impropriety, of wearing fur. What it does offer is the extraordinary story of the fur trade of old, when the rallying cry was, "Get the furs while they last." Part 1. Furs Settle the New World. Chapter 1. As Fine a River as Can be Found. The English explorer Henry Hudson and his crew of 16 sailed the 85-foot Halve Maan, half moon, out of Amsterdam on April 4, 1609, to find a northeasterly route to the riches of the Orient. There is no record of what Hudson thought as he watched the city's skyline recede into the distance, but he was convinced he was on a fool's errand, so a sense of foreboding, perhaps resignation, must have prevailed. In 1608, in the employ of the English trading giant, the Muscovy Company, Hudson had sailed in the same direction with the same charge, only to have his progress blocked by impenetrable pack ice. His own experience, and those of other explorers, including the famed Dutchman Willem Barents, had shown, Hudson believed, that the northeasterly route was a dangerous illusion. Moreover, Hudson was growing increasingly persuaded by intelligence brought back by the English explorers John Smith and George Weymouth, on their voyages west across the Atlantic, that the fabled passage to the Orient likely lay in that direction, somewhere along the coast of the New World. Despite these misgivings, Hudson apparently didn't share his concerns with the directors of the Dutch East India Company, who were bankrolling the voyage. After all, they still viewed the northeast route as the only viable course, evidence to the contrary notwithstanding. Some of Hudson's doubts about the voyage, however, must have filtered back to the company, because just before he departed, the company amended his instructions, explicitly ordering him to sail the Half Moon to the northeast and to think of discovering no other route or passage. 1 month later, the Half Moon ran headlong into a sea full of ice off the northern coast of Russia. Not surprised, Hudson took advantage of this opportunity and gave his increasingly disputatious crew a choice. They could return to Amsterdam, having failed to discover anything of significance, or they could take a gamble and strike out across the Atlantic, using either Smith's or Weymouth's journals as their guide. Following Smith would take them far down the American coast, where Smith believed there was a sea that led to the Orient, while Weymouth's course would have them seek the passage in the northern reaches of present-day Canada. The crew chose to gamble, and Hudson placed his faith in Smith. Hudson now had what he most desperately wanted, a chance for vindication. After a stormy voyage that battered the ship and split one of the masts in two, Hudson and his men reached Nova Scotia in mid-July. They sailed in a southwesterly direction for more than a month, coming close to the English settlement at Jamestown, Virginia, and then traveling a bit farther south before doubling back up the coast. Toward the end of August, Hudson and his men became the first Westerners known to enter Delaware Bay, but the phalanx of sandbars and shoals they soon discovered dispelled any thoughts that this was the passage to the Orient. So they left the bay, proceeded farther up the coast, and in mid-September, as the sun beat back the last wisps of morning fog, the Half Moon sailed between two headlands and entered into as fine a river